We are
That's right.
really honored to be joined by my business partner, Luis. We're going to talk about the shutdown. We're going to talk about Latino politics. We're going to talk about what's coming up in the elections and what we're seeing. As you can tell, I am on the road in California. Luis, I'm in your home state, right?
That's right, Chuck. You're in my home state.
So, Luis, why don't you tell all of the followers who you are and what you're doing here?
Sure, definitely. Well, thank you so much for having me. We've been part of these on behind the scenes, but it's always good to be here and be part of this channel. So my name is Luis Alcauter. I'm a partner at Solidarity Strategies, where I've been working for 9 years, and 9 years working in politics. I'm an immigrant. I was born in Mexico, specifically in Michoacan, and I grew up in the Central Valley in California. So, but I've been living here in DC for those 9 years, and excited to have this conversation. And yeah, but excited that you're there in California.
So, for those of you who didn't understand exactly what he's saying, Luis is my business partner. Luis makes all the things that I get to take credit for. And Luis is from California. And I'm on the coast of California, right by Santa Barbara, which, come to find out, is kind of on a line with Fresno and Visalia, where he's from, but on the other side of the mountains where it's really hot. Do I have that right?
That is right. Much more different than Fresno and the Central Valley.
You think the Central Valley is a little bit different than Santa Barbara? I've seen a lot of nice houses here.
Well, you've been to both places, so you tell me.
I didn't want to make you be embarrassed. You're right. It's very nice here. I see why people come here. We landed at the airport, and my wife Ebony was like, "Ooh, this is a nice airport." I'm like, "Wait, do you see the rest of this joint? It's real nice around here." For those of you wondering, I'm out here doing some client meetings, some strategy meetings with some folks. I've got some dinner tonight with an old friend of mine who worked with me with Dick Gephardt. Tomorrow, I'm getting to see Rick Torres and a bunch of our other friends. I'm going to another
Nice.
strategy meeting on Saturday. But I was telling, hey, Sammy, I was telling Luis I want him to jump on here because it's hard to get guests when I'm on the road and what we're going through in Congress right now. I want to touch upon that. Me and Luis both live in Washington, D.C. I
Right.
live on Capitol Hill. Luis lives up in the northeast, actually.
Peace.
And he actually lives right on the border of the Washington D.C. line. I know because I've dropped him off at his house before.
Mm.
But what we're seeing now is last night at midnight, we shut down the government. Now there is an ongoing battle, a narrative battle between the Democrats and the Republicans on who shut the government down. Why do we shut the government down? And I've been watching the news and watching the Twitters and watching the social medias, and Republicans are like, the Democrats shut it down. And the Democrats are like, well, we're not in charge of anything. And y'all actually shut it down. All we're asking to do as Democrats, not to shut this thing down, is that we want to make sure that we can extend the Biden, not the Biden, the Obamacare uh,
The,
premium
A-
increases, right? Right.
the ACA, the
The
Affordable
ACA,
Care Act.
the Affordable Care. So what's going on is there were provisions done that would give make sure your premiums wouldn't go up. Luis, you want to explain it a little bit because I'm obviously butchering it.
No, that's exactly right. I think it had to do something with the ugly big bill that was happening and the cuts that were happening there. And at this time, Democrats wanted to do a stand. And this is one of the things that few cars they had, and they were able to utilize these to make an impact. And this is the outcome that we're seeing. And a lot of folks are confused about what is a shutdown, how long it will last, how is that going to impact me, and what is it that is going to be happening, and who is it to blame? Democrats say one thing, Republicans said another thing, and many people are confused. And some cases is the first time they're experiencing these. So, not sure if you have more insight into like how long it will last and what is the impact, short and long term, Chuck.
Before we talk about how long it'll last, I heard Ruben Gallego, who was on CNN earlier and had a great interview on Casey Hunt's show. And he talked about 24 million Americans who are on the ACA will see premium increases. That's what I was trying to get out of my mouth a while ago. 24 million if we don't do something by the end of the year, and specifically if we don't do something before November the 1st when the open enrollment starts. Because during the open enrollment, for all of you who are on Obamacare like me, and you should know I'm on there, that we should know what your premium is going to be. And if you sign up for it, you would look at what your premium is, and right now it would double if they don't do something. So Democrats wisely have said this is a good thing for us to be fighting for, to show the American people that we're with them, 24 million of them. Ruben was talking about how it would affect like 130,000 people in his state of Arizona alone if they didn't get this done. And that he'd even be opening up the government to have some negotiations to try to get this done. But to actually answer your question, Luis, I think that this goes on for at least a week. I think it could go on for a couple weeks. I'm afraid that the Trump administration will use this as an excuse, Russell Vogt and the folks at the Office of Professional, whatever the effect Russell is over, to actually try to permanently shut down things that would actually help working folks to then, again, do more favors for rich folks, shut down the Department of Education, make sure that all the other things that they want to see done is done. So that's what worries me. There's a lot of implications, and I thought that Ruben answered this in the right way when the when Casey said, "Well, aren't you worried about these government workers and them losing their pay?" And Ruben wisely, and I loved how he pushed back here, Luis. He said, "The government workers, if they have to go without a check for a week, 2 weeks, or God forbid a month, we're going to make sure that the government workers gets back pay. And if they get the back pay, that means they'll be made whole. It's shitty that they have to go through what they're going through, but people that are on or need ACA premium reductions, that's permanent starting in January. That means their healthcare costs will be doubled from now on. Do you see it any other way, Luis?"
No, and I think it is a small damage that is happening right now, and we might feel the implications right now. But as you mentioned, the long term implication of these or the damage to it could be much bigger. People losing. I was just checking some facts about it. It's like 12 million people could lose their insurance by 2034. So, and you mentioned some numbers as well about the impact that it could have if this budget goes through the way that it is. So Democrats are making a stand. This is the way that they're fighting back, and this is one of the ways that they're trying to figure things out. But again, it could be 1 week, it could be 2 weeks, but it could be much more longer, and the impact could have long term implications for a lot of people in their lives and their healthcare, especially Latinos.
Yeah, you bring up a great point. Ruben was talking about how currently people that are going to the grocery store and buying ground meat, it's so much more expensive. People that are paying more for their energy costs, it's more expensive. There's lots of things at the grocery store that's going up because of the Trump tariffs. I like to call them the Trump tax tariffs. You're starting to see it in everyday life. So as cost increase, what people don't need is an increase in their healthcare premiums. Again, I own a small business. Luis helps me run that business. I am on Obamacare. I am in the process. There's a lot of our employees that are on there. Their health care will go up if they have any kind of subsidies that comes in with that. Luis, let me ask you what this does to a family where you come from. The Central Valley of California has been called the breadbasket of the world. Like it feeds so many people throughout the United States and globally, and I know you're working on a congressional race there with Randy Vieques, who we had on last week.
Right.
What does it mean to a family there if this thing goes on and these premiums are not something done with these premiums not to have an increase?
I mean, definitely already you can see that many of these families rely on these safety nets to be able to, whether it is receiving financial assistance to eat or receiving healthcare assistance. So, especially in this district where more than half of the people rely on Medicaid or Medicaid, as they call it in California, the implications can be really, really damaging to many of those families, whether they have small children or not. And so, it is very important to pay attention to that and how is it going to be and who's going to be fighting for them, because I think they're looking for someone who's going to be able to understand their pain and who's going to be standing for them. And in these cases, we're looking like to for Randy Villegas to represent them in the coming elections.
I think that's a good segue into what we've been seeing around the country in these working class neighborhoods. Can you tell me some of the themes that you and Randy have come up with in that race that you see as resonating with Latinos in the Central Valley that's very synonymous with other places? I keep going back there because you're from there, and it's one of the least most college educated districts in the country. It's very working class. It's all the things that people think about when they think about Latinos. So some of the themes that you've seen that have been working there, and let me throw this in, I'd love to hear if you've heard from any Latino Republicans who are regretting their vote from just a year ago.
Yeah, I think the things that we've been seeing is just the very, very simple things that we've been focusing on, right? Like the fact that people are looking to have a job, being able to get on time to home and being able to pay for their groceries. So, what is it that we're going to be able to do for them? And what are the solutions and options that we're giving them as they're fighting to provide for their families? And it goes like, again, very simple things like, what is it that you're going to be doing for me? And how are we going to be able to find those solutions to those problems?
Yeah, and I think that you're onto something. We've been seeing so much uh, in the field as we talk to folks, as we have focus groups and polling. There's this common, theme of there's this regret, but then there's also they're not sold yet on Democrats. So I love this message that Randy was using last week of talking about affordability, affordability, affordability. I think
Right.
that that is so important in what we're looking at today, and I think it goes into this government shutdown. I think people really wanted to see Democrats make a stand so
Mhm.
that they could show that they were fighting for something so people could point to saying that Democrats aren't just fleckless and that we're not just wusses and that we'll stand up and that Donald Trump and the Republicans can't just push people around, that you have to be out there in the streets. As you start looking at working with campaigns, I know you're working on campaigns in Texas and in Florida and other places. Do you see a through line on issues that are working not only in California and in the Central Valley where you're from, but in other places as you start talking to these candidates that you're actually on their campaigns and working with?
Yeah, I think, and I think we continue to see, and you mentioned it, the affordability aspect of it, and touches a lot of aspects of life, whether you're working, healthcare, buying a home, the cost of living. Many of these things are very impactful and top of mind for many individuals, whether it is just going to the grocery store and what is it that you're going to be able to afford, how much gas I'm going to put on my car, how am I going to pay for my doctor, how am I going to fix my car. So just making sure that we're addressing those issues and we're talking directly to them in a variety of different ways and in a creative way, reaching out to them, and in some cases in English and Spanish, how we're doing it. And I think it's just the beginning of it. Elections are happening, yes, this year in few states, but more importantly, it's going to be how it's going to play out next year.
Yeah, I think that that's really important. I want to get to the tactics here in a minute. So don't let me forget to go back to talk about some of the things that you're seeing in digital advertising, which you're really good at with the team. But I want to hit on one more issue that's very personal for you. You mentioned, and I know that you're an immigrant from
Yeah.
Mexico. You were a DACA recipient for many, many years, and you were working under DACA, which folks hear about DACA, deferred action for folks like Luis, who came here as a child with his family, went to school, went to college, and then had was able to work under DACA. And I want to congratulate Luis, and y'all should all know that Luis got to become a
Thank you.
U.S. citizen this year. It was awesome. We were so happy that Luis got to become a U.S. citizen. He married the love of his life from college. We love Cynthia. But talk about what you're seeing now, since you come with this unique perspective, just like a lot of folks in our firm. We have other immigrants in our firm is you have this through line that you've been talking about of all these people that are living with the anxiety of the cost of living. What does meat cost? What do eggs cost? What does healthcare cost? How much is gas this week? You have all that's in everybody's life. And now, on top of that, Luis, you have the National Guard showing up in cities. You have ICE agents who are roaming the parking lots of Home Depot. You have them going through parks, picking up people. The Supreme Court has said you could uh, mess with somebody because their color of their skin, stereotyping them. Talk about what you're hearing from the immigrant community on what's going on with Donald Trump and this and these ICE raids. Again, I'm not saying that people that come here who break our law, who do bad things, need to be deported. Me and Luis both agree with that. If you come here and you're acting idiot, you should be sent back to where you came from. I'm talking about folks who just came here undocumented, looking for a better life, like your family, Luis.
Yeah, I think there is a sense of fear, right, with whatever you're going to be doing in the aspect of what is it that is going to happen to me or my family, especially if you don't have documents, if you're undocumented, and what is the future of what the this country represents. Many of us came looking for a better world, a better opportunity, and having to deal with these extra layer of challenges, it makes it much more difficult. It's already very difficult when you're undocumented and you have to deal with language, documents, whatever that might be. And in addition to that, you have to deal with the president, the eyes appearing in your area of work or whatever that might be. So continue to be a challenge for many of the families on what is it that is going to be and how difficult is their lives continue to be. So they're worried, they're fear, and we. But I think also something very important about the Latino community or the immigrant Latino community is how resilient they are. And I think that's something that we continue to see, whatever that is. They moms, dads, parents continue to get up every morning and go to work because that's something that they wanted to do, whether it is for them or for their kids.
I think there's a lot of people, Luis, that would be surprised, and I want you to explain when folks are like, "Well, folks should do this the right way," and I think folks thinks that when you marry some United States citizen, all of a sudden after the wedding ceremony, you get a certificate that says you're a U.S. citizen. From the moment that you and Cynthia got married, can you tell folks how long? And you went through all the processes. You never missed an appointment. You're the example of DACA. You had to go through criminal background checks. Like you've been involved in the government for a long time because they've had your information, criminal background checks, all the things, all while paying Social Security, paying employment taxes, paying federal taxes. Am I missing anything?
No, it's just a very, very extensive process. And the couple of times that I had interviews with people from Homeland Security who were checking my case. They had a huge file of everything that they had compiled of my life. And you're trying to make the right choices is difficult. And some people might call you vanilla or whatever that might be because you just want to live your life as best you can and take the best choices you can. And any mistake, any little mistake, it can cost you your citizenship, your residency, the opportunity to become legal in this country. So it was a very long process since from the moment I got married to my wife to the moment, yes, last year when I became a U.S. citizen. It took what 6-7 years to be able to provide documents, going to meetings, going to interviews, providing an additional documents, and even last minute when I had my last interview to become or the last step to become a U.S. citizen, they still thought that I didn't had enough documents to provide, and they were still asking me for things that I didn't even have. But thankfully, I was able to talk to them and convince them, and they were able to prove them that hey, I had enough stuff to be able to become a U.S. citizen. So that's what happened last year. But it is a very extensive process, and every case is different. That's something else that makes it very unique. And I can speak about my experience, but every case is different, and there's many complications. There's many things to be considered. There's many variables to be able to make those decisions. And it feels like it's even harder nowadays.
It's incredible to hear that, and everybody listening should take that and understand that of what he said he had to go through even after he was married to become a U.S. citizen. Now, keep in mind what regular folks who have a job making 30, 40, $50,000 a year, which is a great little job you could have doing whatever you're doing. I know what Luis makes, and I'm not going to talk about it on this camera, but Luis has a really good job. Luis is the managing partner of this firm. Let's just say Luis makes a lot of money in more than six figures, and I'll just leave that there. And I'm not going to put his business out there, but I'm telling you that to say Luis has the money, the time, the wherewithal, and all of the things of privilege you would need to come up with whatever that paperwork that they would come up with every time they wanted something different. Can you imagine if you're a farm worker? Can you imagine if you work down at the sandwich shop? Can you imagine if you are a bank teller? I'm not going to stereotype us into just doing manual labor jobs. What if you're the assistant manager at a bank and you make 60 grand a year and you have a wife and a couple kids and you don't have time to go be searching for papers and all the things, right? Like Luis is the pinnacle of success when it comes to what you look for in a DACA recipient or any human being, period. And he had to go through this extensive process. So you can imagine. And he didn't even talk about how much it cost, but just coming up with the paperwork to do it. Am I leaving anything out of part? Is one of the obstacles, Luis?
It's just also the time, and also it happened
The time.
during COVID, right? So it delayed the process even more. The simple fact of getting biometrics, which is taking your pictures and getting your fingerprints, it's another layer. Then it took just another year because of COVID. I mean, something that we couldn't control or anything else, but it's another layer of things that could happen. In addition to something else, like it could be a traffic violation that can ruin completely your process. So little things like that and being able to follow the rules as much as possible. I mean, I'm not saying not to do so, but sometimes we make mistakes. And little things can cost you your opportunity to become quote unquote legal in this country.
That is crazy. So if you are working, I'm again, Luis is my business partner, Solidarity Strategy. We're talking about his journey becoming a U.S. citizen and how he had to do everything just right. And think about other DACA recipients now. And Luis, do I have this right that if you are currently here and somebody's working on a deferred action, DACA, they're paying employment taxes, they're paying Social Security and
Correct.
Medicaid, and they're paying you had to pay all of that with no guarantee. You will get to see some of this benefit because you now have become a U.S. citizen. But folks that are under temporary status, there's no guarantee that all this money that they're giving the federal government that they will ever see again.
Yeah, there's no guarantee, and there's no guarantee that every 2 years, at least for DACA, you have to renew it. So maybe in the next coming 2 years, you don't have the
Wait.
opportunity to
Every
use.
2 years, once you have DACA, you have to do it. That's the same with
Correct.
TPS and other temporary statuses.
I believe that is the case as well.
So you're sitting there, you're paying federal taxes, you're paying local taxes, you're paying Social Security, you're paying Medicaid. I if you watched right-wing media, you would think that these immigrants are a suck on the system, that they're just taking resources and getting I saw commercials that saying they get free hotel rooms and they get all this stuff. I
Right.
know for a fact because you were one of these people that you were paying all these taxes and you've been doing it for over 20 years. Do I have that right?
Yeah. And I have done it and I understand. I mean, you live here, you have to pay your taxes. I'm fine with that. But I also feel like I needed the opportunity to be able to become legal and many other people as well, especially if they're contributing to the economy, they're being good citizens, they're doing the things that they need to be doing. Why not offer the opportunity to for those to continue to be part of our communities and have an impact in becoming legal in this country?
I think that that's really important. And this, everybody that's listening, is the backbone of why our firm is so much better than everybody else's because it's the people. It's not Chuck Rocha. It's Luis, all of his coworkers, and folks who have real experience. So think about that, what you've heard Luis explain. Everybody in our firm, and it's not my firm, it's Luis's firm, it's our firm, have a unique story. It could be Roberto in Puerto Rico. It could be somebody else on the firm who is Latino who has this unique Latino experience. So when Luis is asked, and we're going to get to the strategy now, Luis, when Luis is asked how to make an ad and to write an ad targeting Latinos in the Central Valley, he is that Latino. He's lived with those hardships. So it comes through and it resonates. Just like when you see me on Twitter talking about I'm the only senior Democratic strategist who don't have a college degree. I've got a criminal record. I was a teenage father. Like those things are what make me a good consultant, not my 30 years of experience. Sure, that helps, but it's these real life experiences that the people that you're hiring now to do these campaigns have no idea. There's a lot of well meaning white consultants who think they understand the immigrant community or the Latino diaspora at all, and they have no idea. That's why having cultural competency really matters. That's why Luis is one of the best ad makers, why Daisy's a good ad maker, why everybody on the team, Hilda, all the group, right? Because when they are writing it, they're telling a story of their own lives, and that's what really matters. So, Luis, now that we know this about your journey, and we know now that you're making ads for senators and congressmen and state reps and all of these city councilmen, tell me some of the behind the scenes, not too much. We don't give the Republicans too much, but some of the strategies that we see that works better with Latino voters than the general audience or a white suburban woman. What are the things that make it other than the creative? I get the creative, I just explained that. But like the nuances of where do you serve these ads to where Latinos are at?
I think one of the main things that we can constantly talk about it is just where we're serving these ads. And one of them is just digital platforms, whether it is these Facebook, Instagram, exploring to WhatsApp, TikTok, and whatever they're consuming that information. And what makes us very different from other firms is just the fact that we can do it into languages and we do it very well. We like to say that, hey, translation is easy, but making sure that it makes sense is something that makes us unique and different on the approach and we're doing. And you mentioned it, we belong to these communities, so we understand how to best communicate with them and not just give you the cookie cutting ad that we constantly see, but something different that is going to resonate in those communities. And whether it is, like I said, identifying where they're consuming information, whether it is these digital platforms where we're putting them, or these new nuances like YouTube, like OTT, CTV, these connected TV outlets that where we're advertising and we're seeing more opportunities there to connect with our communities as well.
Luis, when somebody comes up to you that's running for Congress in Texas, in San Antonio, and they're like, we need to make an ad. Half of this district is Latino. Should I make this ad in English or Spanish? What do you tell them?
I will say that if you are able to, if we can have both options, yes, English and Spanish. In some cases, we do some bilingual approaches, some Spanglish, where they're able to connect with the community. But if we can do it in English and Spanish, definitely, and being able to advertise and being able to put it out there and being able to have the conversation with that community. In some cases, there is no that opportunity for budget reasons or whatever that might be. But having that English and Spanish option is always something we recommend.
Luis, if I have, am I running for Congress in that same Texas seat, and I've got $50,000 in the last 3 weeks of the campaign, and the majority of this seat is Latinos, and I can only buy one thing, or maybe you're going to tell me to buy multiple things, but I've only got $50,000. What do you tell that client to buy?
With only 3 weeks, I would say continue to do your increase your advertisement in digital. And if you have an opportunity to do some texting, that will be the other suggestion that I will say to invest. But those will be the only things. I mean, it's too late for mail, it's too late to do other things, but continue to increase that digital advertisement and investment on that end.
And in digital advertising, specifically with Latinos, which platform have you seen be the most where most eyeballs are?
Definitely YouTube. Continue to
YouTube.
see that. Yes.
And is that
And
the if I'm watching a fishing video, I'm playing a little coy here for y'all. I know the answers. If I'm watching a fishing video and the ad comes on for the first 5 seconds I'm watching, maybe it's six, and then I can hit skip. And then some of them I have to watch 15 seconds of it and then I skip, or maybe it's just a 15-second ad. Are those the ones you're talking about?
those are the ones we're talking about. Yeah, those 6 seconds, those 15 seconds. And I mean, it's not a lot of time. So, how we can be and catch your attention in those 15 seconds, that's where our expertise comes to play here. So, we can even make 30 seconds. But yeah, recommending the 6 seconds, the 15 seconds, and catching your attention within that time limit.
So you've been at the firm for 9 years.
Yes,
What are some of the biggest lessons in politics that you've learned? Like, you don't have to give
good question.
behind the scenes, but like you have grown into like the person running the whole damn place now, and not the management part. You don't have to tell me that it sucks to have to do paperwork. I get that, especially the taxes or the other things me and you've lived through. But in politics, like what are some of the biggest lessons you learn year in and year out that, stay pretty constant?
I think people are paying more attention to these Latino aspect of voting. And every year since the moment I started working here, you have been a champion on that end and talking about that aspect. But it's something that constantly I see more people paying attention and elevating that issue, especially in these elections, Latino men. People were talking about many of those aspects of that. So that's something that I definitely see and how to best advertise to that community. I feel like people are actually thinking about it, finding solutions. It's hard to find like what exactly is going to happen and what are the outcome of those recommendations, but that's something that I've been seeing, especially also the fact that digital advertisement it continues to grow. That's another important factor of where we can be thinking about and how is it changing from 9 years ago to now.
Yeah, I think that that's really important. I knew that was a cold question for you to figure out on the spot, like what's big lessons. We're going to switch gears here and go to what I call the rapid fire questions about you as an individual.
Sure.
I want to know. This makes him so nervous. Y'all should know that I know Luis really well. He's not only my partner, but business partner, but he is my best friend. So we do a lot of fishing together. We get to hang out a lot. We can tell each
Right.
other the truths. We get to do a lot of that and uh, tell people something they wouldn't know about you by reading your resume. Tell me something that's not on your resume that they would not know about you.
Well, you always say these, and I never usually say it, but I'm going to say it here. Playing water polo was something that nobody will know
Wait
about me.
just a minute. Water polo. Let's make sure that everybody knows I knew this answer. Water polo. This Mexican in Fresno was playing water polo. Excuse me. Please continue, Luis.
It was my first year in high school, and my ESL teacher, my English second language teacher, uh, was the water polo coach, and we were playing tennis. We were playing with his ball inside the classroom, and he's like, "Hey, if you're going to be messing around, you should just come out and try out water polo." I was the only Mexican, didn't know any English. There were a bunch of white boys, and I was the only Mexican there playing water polo. He spoke broken Spanish. I spoke broken English, and we were able to communicate, and we did very well. I played 4 years of water polo. I did swimming as well, and something that I was very proud and unique to be able to do that and represent my community in that way in a place where I was the only person of color, really.
That's amazing that you were a water polo player. Is it really as hard as people say it is?
It is extremely hard. It takes a lot of dedication and working out and all of those things, but that's what
So the
made it
swimming
great.
and stuff, that mean like you're constantly treading water, right?
Yeah, they check your nails before every match because they're
Please
even
explain to people why they check your nails.
because everything that happens under the water that people don't see, it's what makes it, I think, unique about water polo. How brutal can be. You can come out of the water with your back was fully scratched or half of your speedo rip, whatever that might be. People kicking you or pushing you or whatever that might be, or try to keep you down in the water. So there's all kinds of different things that happen there.
So what did your parents ever come watch you play water polo?
They did. They did came watching me, especially my senior year when they have the senior night. They came and I gave my mom some flowers because every senior gets some flowers. So she was there and I was able to give them to my mom.
Did they explain it? Did you explain it to them? I keep thinking about this stereotypical Mexican immigrant family, your mom and dad, and I know their story well. Um, that it was like soccer but in water?
Exactly. And I use also basketball, but mainly soccer, less players. But it's a combination between soccer because there's a goal, there's a goalie, but also like basketball because there's a little bit more people than basketball, but it's the same idea.
So interesting. I think folks should just take that in. Like you would never think that a Mexican immigrant living in the Central Valley of no water around in Fresno, that's a desert, is playing water polo at Fresno State. Just like folks who think about Chuck Rocha don't know how much I love the Florida Keys and fishing and all the things and the adventures and hiking and the things that Luis and I get to do together with lots of our friends. It's may not be quote unquote stereotypical, but we're just American as everybody else. And we have our ways of thinking. Speaking of being Mexican, being American, and now, Luis, you are a dual resident of the United States and Mexico. I'm really curious now that Bad Bunny is going to be the halftime entertainment and music has been on the minds of lots of people.
Right.
Tell me, what is your go-to music? I know you're an avid runner now, and I know you're an avid workouter. I see you at the gym in the mornings when we're traveling together with me. What are you listening to when you're listening to music? What's your go-to music?
I love Coldplay. It's one of the bands that I follow the most, but I like everything, and I know that
Coldplay with
many
the
people.
that had the couple that was up in the box,
Yes,
and they
that
that
that Coldplay. Yes, I do. And surprisingly, and I guess it goes to your point about how, yes, I'm an immigrant. Yes, I have an accent. Yes, I have all these things. And even though, and that's something that we can uh, think about when we're advertising to the Latino community. Yeah, English is my second language, but I'm consuming white people content, if you will, and I'm much different than any other individual who living in this country. So we they try to divide us, they try to make us all these different things, but we're much more alike than people think.
You have just made such a great point about the targeting of Latino voters. Because think about it, y'all. We've spent the first half hour pulling the curtain back on how to advertise to Latinos, political strategies, how this has worked. Luis telling his personal narrative. Me and Luis on the voter file show up as Latino male voters. And most consultants who see a 56 and a 35-year-old Latino voter assume we speak Spanish, assume we're listening to Mexican music on the radio, and assume we're consuming certain kind of content digitally. But they have no idea that Luis is listening to Coldplay I'm searching Seychelles fishing videos on YouTube for my upcoming trip. And we're the furthest thing from the stereotypical Mexican male that you could be. And this is why it's so hard to reach this group of voters with things that they care about. Most well meaning Democratic consultants just assume every Latino cares about immigration. And I do. And Luis does. But we're not up scrolling that at night. We're looking at things that interest us, things that are captivating our imagination, things that make us happy.
Right.
Sure, we still care about immigration, but we also care about affordability and all the other things. So I think you make a great point on how hard it is to advertise with your new Coldplay explanation of your music. God, I hope we get back to some Mexican culture here with this next second to last question, which is we've talked about the sports. We know you like to fish. I like to fish. We know about the water polo. There seems to be a water theme there. We know about the music. But now, tell me about the food. Tell me about the food that is your go-to meals or your favorite food. I always usually ask, what was the favorite meal your mother cooked? Maybe tell me that. Tell me the favorite meal Cynthia cooks, which I think if I remember, Cynthia don't cook that much and you do. But tell me about your favorite meals and what food you really go to.
I mean, I definitely love Mexican food, and sometimes we ask the question here in the office: if you had to only choose one food for the rest of your life, what would you choose? And I said Mexican food. It's delicious. It varies. I love spicy food, so definitely Mexican food. Specifically, what dish? I will say that my mom's albondigas. Albondigas means meatballs. And then some people eat them in caldo, which is a soup. I don't eat them that way. She puts some kind of sauce, chipotle sauce with some beans and rice, and it is just my to go. I love avocado, so everything that I put it with that, and I eat it with that. So that is every time I go home and the opportunity to go home, that's the meal I have. Cynthia's been changing, and she's been cooking a lot more,
What?
and we eat a lot of ceviche. We love to eat it. It's simple, it's easy to make, and again, it has avocado, which I love, and it's just something that we make, and it doesn't take us too much time to make, and I love eating it.
Avocados. Luis, you should tell everybody on this Substack what is Michoacan, Mexico known for.
Or the land of the avocado. So maybe there's a correlation there or something to compare with where I'm from and why I like avocados.
Is it true, Michoacan, where you're from, that there's a whole mafia built around the production and sale of
There
avocados?
is a whole mafia of it. Yes, it is. And it's a very interesting fruit or vegetable, however you want to call it. But it's just how much water it takes and the impact that it has. But that's for another conversation.
Sure. This is the last question. I've had you on the spot and made you uncomfortable as much as I want to today, but I think it's important for this last question is that, you know, you've come to this country as an immigrant when you were like 12, 13 years old. You go through the schools in California. You end up getting and going to school at Fresno State. We met by happenstance because one of your friends' wife worked for me and you had reached out to him. You should know Luis went through the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute, the CHCI internship program. Here's a fun fact I just remember about Luis before we get to this inspirational shit at the end is Luis got to meet while he was doing CHCI President Obama.
Did get to meet President.
And he got to ride in the Beast with President Obama from the White House to the State of the Union. Did I get that right, Luis?
No State of the Union. It was the CHEI Gala. And me and myself, my colleague Victor, lives here in DC, and I still keep in touch with him. And it's something that connects us, that trip that we did. But we went to the White House. He was a fellow, I was an intern. We didn't know that we were going to meet President Obama. They said that we were going to meet one of the senior advisors to him. We went to the White House. They gave us a tour. We saw where they make the flower arrangements. We saw a lot of things in that White House. It was really, really amazing. And suddenly we went to this room and they're like, hey, you're actually going to meet President Obama. What are you going to ask him? So you have a few minutes, and by the way, he's going to give you a ride from the White House to the convention center. So we were super excited. They didn't know what to think. It was a moment that I mean, it changed my life being able to do that and say that. And I couldn't believe that an immigrant from Mexico was able to meet the president of the United States and have the opportunity to be able to ride the beast with him, where I took a selfie with him. So it was such a unique experience, something that I really keep in mind. And many people share the story with me. Then I don't bring it that often, but many people do on my behalf.
And can we ask what question you got to ask him, and what was it?
Yeah, definitely. If I remember correctly, I was a DACA recipient, and I was like, "Hey, President Obama, I am a DACA recipient at this time. What is it that you're going to do in a permanent solution for many of the my fellow DACA recipients? I am only one, but there are many people who are fighting and have different stories and have the opportunity to be DACA at this moment. But what is the permanent solution? I think we talk about it during this conversation about all the different things that we're doing correctly. We should have the opportunity to be able to live here in peace with the opportunity to live legally.
Now that's a great question. I had forgotten all about that. You should lead with water polo and the Obama thing when people ask you what's the most interesting
Yeah.
thing you've ever done. You should do that, and then mention work for Chuck Rocha third. So the question at the end was, uh, you come to DC, you're like an intern when you start 9 years ago. 9 years later, you're managing partner of the largest Latino-owned political consulting firm in the country. You're running presidential campaigns. You work for Bernie Sanders as the paid communication director. You've had these big jobs on these campaigns, working Ruben Gallego, doing all these things. What would you tell the kid who's coming to DC, who's 21 years old, just graduating college? What I'm asking you for, Luis, is advice for them. Like, how did you do it? And what would you tell them they should do? I mean, yes, you got to meet me, we hit it up, but it wasn't me. You made your own way. But what advice do you have for them?
Oh, that's a great question. And I think the ability to be flexible in many of the cases where you're able to take different jobs um, and have the opportunity to expand your opportunities when meeting other people. I mean, knowing it sometimes is difficult to know what exactly you want, but I know and I have met a lot of individuals in regards to like, hey, they're looking for opportunities to meet others. They're not afraid to network and they have the ability to be able to make the best, whatever it is, delivering coffee to do whatever it takes to be able to accomplish what they wanted to do. So I think being flexible and having the ability to adapt to many of the circumstances is something that, at least to me, was very beneficial when it comes to where I am, and also be hungry about and have your ambitions of like, hey, yes, I am an intern, but you can be much more than that. And we have seen it. Many people have come through here, and now they're leading many organizations. They were an intern here, and now they are our client. Whatever that might be, the roles changes. So be nice. You always say that. Be nice. Chew with your mouth closed and be on time, so trying to keep that in mind as well. But yeah, there's many more things, but I think that that's one of the things that comes to mind.
Everybody should know that when Luis came to the firm, he had never worked on a political campaign. He knew nothing about a political campaign. And now he runs political campaigns all over the country. He learned them, he studied them, and he got to work inside the campaign for Bernie Sanders and lots. That just shows that you may not have the quote unquote right experience, but if you work hard, show up on time, and figure things out, he's designed mail. He hasn't been to design school. He's made TV commercials. He hasn't been to acting school or film school. You can learn and figure this stuff out if you're smart and pay attention. That's why I always make light of show up on time, chew with your mouth closed, and be nice, is because if you work hard and you're nice to people and you find people that your network that Luis was talking about and network with other folks to learn how to do things, anybody can make it. I'm living proof of that. Daisy's living proof. Roberto's living proof. Hilda's living proof. Vanessa. I could go through all of our employees. They all have that singular thing in common. And that goes for all of you listening to this Substack, is that that's the through line. The reason I wanted to do this Substack is to prove to people and country better? What can we do to make our politics better? That's why we do this. That's why I was hungry to have Luis on, because together, if you can do some basic things and be nice to people and look at what brings us together instead of what pulls us apart, we can be better every single day. Again, I want to thank Luis for being on the Substack with me today. Until next time, we're out with the Rocha Revolution, and I'm going to make it safely home from this beautiful place in California that's nice. Y'all be good.
Bye. Thank you, Chuck.
Be good.